And we are live. Good morning to everybody there on LinkedIn. It is Tuesday, November 9th. We are going to be talking about some of the cybersecurity incidents that have been in the news. I was about to say cybersecurity hacks, but the first question that I have was in regards to the Robinhood hack or attack, I'll say.
Yeah.
So yesterday, it was announced that Robinhood suffered a security breach, and allegedly a bad guy was able to get in, steal some data. There was possibly some extortion. So what are the details that you've actually seen on this?
So first of all, credit to Robinhood for the disclosure, though I think by regulatory compliance, they had to. I think they operate out of California, and they deal with the public. So the CDPR, I think it is, the California Data Protection Regulation, is mandates that they would have to disclose that they had this breach. So what is known is that they did have a breach. They haven't announced what the dwell time was, so how long this attacker was in there. What they have disclosed, though, again, because they kind of had to, is the number of records that may have been accessed. Based on the analysis that they've had Mandiant come in and do, Mandiant being the incident response firm that they're working with, which is, a good incident response company. So 5 million users, email addresses, 2 million users, real names, name, date of birth, and zip code for 310 people, approximately, they say, and then extensive personal data for 10 users, which is all interesting. And they're saying this is data that the hackers collected so that they actually can validate in some way that the attacker would likely have exfiltrated. The personal data for 10 users is really interesting because of the nature of the platform and what they do, right? It leaves the question, was this maybe a targeted attack that started out it's a targeted attack, but the user or the attacker just also happened to scoop a bunch of other data when they were in there. Because to go after 10 specific individuals is quite interesting if you had the level of access that they did.
The whole thing is a bit interesting. So I mean, the first point that I wanted to drill in on was, was this actually a cyber attack? Certainly it was a data breach, but was it actually a cyber attack? Because it seemed like the blog post and also some of the news reporting suggested that their manner of access was simply social engineering a customer support rep. And that enabled access to, I guess, the support software. Wasn't clear if it was homegrown support software or if they're using something off the shelf. And then they had differing levels of access, or what seemed like differing levels of access to the customer records, which to me it just seemed a bit odd that you wouldn't just scoop everything from everybody. That there were these differing levels.
Yeah, my sense of it. So to your point, it was, or it's been announced that it was conducted through social engineering of a user. Not sure. Did you see that it was a CSR specifically?
Yeah, I think it was confirmed, but that it was social engineering of a customer support rep, which also again was interesting because it wouldn't, to me, I wouldn't expect a customer support rep having that level of access to absolutely everything at the same time. So, I mean, whether that was initial access and they somehow escalated from there, it'd be great if we knew what the support software was, right? If this was something off the shelf or if it was something custom.
Yeah, or how they're structuring the way that software is deployed. So to your point, if it's custom built, then access may be as simple as like a GUI that somebody's crafted up, and the back end is a flat file that everybody has access to and like over privileged access to. That's not uncommon when you kind of roll your own. So social engineering CSR doesn't surprise me. And from there, getting them to potentially deploy something of like a rat on their device, a remote access Trojan of some sort, or even like a commercial off-the-shelf remote access tool under the guise of, hey, this is Brian from the InfoSec team. Here in the SOC, we're seeing all these alerts coming from your endpoint. Can you verify your IP address for me? Oh yeah, that's you. That's what we're saying. Your machine keeps pinging out to Thailand for some reason. We're trying to figure this out. Can you grab this package and deploy it so I can remote in and take a look, right? And then from there, I have access to the CSR desktop and I do what I'm going to do. So yeah.
How common? So I mean, if we bucket Robinhood as a fintech company, I mean they're just a large fintech company. How common is it for a fintech company to roll their own either administration console, backend console, customer support interface? Like, is this something that you see a lot when you're working with customers?
Yeah, in the fintech and crypto space, we see people at different stages of kind of a life cycle, right? So Robinhood's an interesting one. They went IPO not too long ago. They have like a massive user base, and they're backed, they're funded through hedge funds and other venture capital. How they've invested in their IT, remains to be a question mark. There's been some weird stuff with Robinhood historically, not just on this side, but they've also had identified logic problems in their platform itself, right? There was at one point where users figured out how to gain infinite leverage by boring against other transactions that they had, and just could leverage themselves to whatever they wanted. And that took Robinhood a little while to fix, right? So if they did build their own equivalent of some sort of desktop or help desk software, I wouldn't be shocked to hear that they had maybe kind of undercooked the role-based access controls. And that might be where some of these problems stem from, where a user just basically has carte blanche or near carte blanche, or they can escalate to carte blanche type of privilege. Again, it also depends on like the role of the person that they were speaking to. If you don't have like many tiers of customer service reps, if it's essentially a flat organization, and the person you happen to pick is, like the supervisor or something like that, they may just by nature of their job have access to everything. So
I do think it is common, particularly for more junior organizations or organizations that are scaling quite quickly, where, hey, customer support rep needs access to this thing. Supervisor isn't available because there's so much growth, there's so many users. Hey, just here's effectively admin level access. You get to see everything. That solves the problem, quote unquote, for the customer support rep. But to your point, I mean, do they really need all that access to absolutely everything? And here's potentially what happens if not. I did see, so Mandiant was the firm that they called to come investigate. I did see Mandiant CTO saying that they had actually observed this threat actor in other security incidents, limited number of security incidents, but that they had tracked this person, and it seems like they were targeting and extorting other organizations. And there was a prediction made that they expect other organizations to be targeted and extorted as well. So how hard is it to do that type of attribution where you actually know exactly who, or not exactly, but you have a pretty good idea of who the threat actor is?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Mandiant or a large incident response firm that works on multiple cases all the time, then you are going to start to see common indicators of compromise across the different clients that you engage with, and that's going to come down to the toolkit that the actor uses, whatever the email language that they might use, if that's part of like the initial entry. So they might do it over the phone. They'll have a script that they'll be working from, or they might do it via email, right, from some sort of spoofed address, and communicate that way. And then so you've got that, and that language will be common between organizations. And then whatever supplementary tool set that they happen to use once they have access, be it whatever they deploy secondary, like I said, some sort of rat or something like that, or even if they go further and actually get into like using real hacking tools to gain access to databases and stuff like that, then those tools you'll be able to pick up what build they are, the build dates and stuff like that. The OPSEC of these actors varies greatly. If you're talking nation state actor, right, you might never see the same thing twice, right? Or very infrequently see the same thing twice. The other thing that will kind of tip who the actor is then the infrastructure that they're operating from, right? They'll be coming from, obviously they have to come from server somewhere, or dumping their data out to a server somewhere, or they're using some sort of cloud service that this same actor uses over and over that's maybe not common. And then, there's going to be some sort of email address attached where they want this payment to go to, right? So you can attribute it based on that if they're using the same email address every time. And again, the language in that extortion request is probably going to be common. So those are all the ways you can kind of paint a picture of, yeah, we've seen this group, in 10 out of the last 50 of these that we've done.
Yeah, or I guess to your point, like hates the same Bitcoin wallet, right?
Yeah,
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen certain actors like generate a new Bitcoin wallet for every engagement, but then they still use the same platform and the same ransomware toolkit. So it's the same actor, but what it might actually be is an affiliate. And I think we're going to talk a lot about those shortly. So.
Yeah, we'll switch gears here to the Revil group here in just a second. But the last note here. So in addition to the attack taking place and the data breach taking place, there was also an extortion attempt. Now here's the question: Robinhood is known to be a publicly traded company. Robinhood, to your earlier point, I think we suspect they're in California, and so there's regulatory compliance to require data breach notifications. Is the attacker really hoping that the extortion is, hey, pay us and we won't tell anybody that you got breached? Like what is that the incentive that they're trying to play on, do you think?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, it's not without precedence though, right? Uber went down this path and they got slapped on the wrist for it really hard because of the way they tried to handle it. So they had an exposed S3 bucket, so part of their Amazon cloud services that was exposed and readable to the public, and I don't know, security researcher, if you want to call them that, found this exposed S3 bucket and contacted Amazon and was like, hey, I downloaded or contacted Uber and was like, hey, I downloaded all your data. I think it was every Uber user's contact data. And that looked really bad. And so Uber tried to pave over this as a bug bounty. Right, they tried to retroactively make this a bug bounty for $100,000, and there's no bug that they would pay $100K for, based on their bug bounty program. So, and that quickly got exposed, and they looked really bad for that. So I think it's not without precedence that these things can happen, especially in as a public company, and Robinhood themselves have had some ups and downs and some negative press around some behaviors that they've had potentially. They might not want to look like they don't know what they're doing from a security perspective, right, publicly. So they might have thought about this for a hot minute and said, okay, well, if this comes out though, look what happened to Uber. To your point though, companies often operating in other geographies and jurisdictions, they might not think twice about it. They might be like, okay, we'll pay. What guarantees do we get? Right. So.
Right. Well, so on that note, we'll switch gears here. Justice Department actually put out a press release just in the last couple of days. Headline reads: Ukrainian arrested and charged with ransomware attack on Kaseya. Mm-hmm. And subtitle: Justice Department seizes 6.1 million related to alleged ransomware extortionists. So there've been a string of high-profile ransomware attacks. There was the JBS Meat attack. There was Kaseya. There were a number of others, and it seemed like there was, beginning of the year, it seemed like there was a decent amount of political will to go do something, right? Not just to stand idly by, but actually to go do something. And so it seems like there was a concerted effort here by, it looks like, Secret Service, Justice Department, FBI, I guess. Cyber Command as well is named in various news reports at going after the Revil group or affiliates who work with the Revil group, to try and go after some of these guys. So what are you hearing on your side?
Yeah, basically what you said, plus like there's obviously the involvement of the European law enforcement agencies, Europol, and Europol coordinated with local law enforcement in Ukraine and other European law enforcement entities in order to enable this. And I think that's always kind of been the challenge, is that, you know, these actors are operating from those geographies. They're operating out of typically Western Europe somewhere. Or Eastern Europe, depending on the group. Though one of the roll-ups that happened as well too, as part of like these overall ransomware arrests, was also out of South Korea, which was interesting. So what I've seen is that since February, there's been basically 7 big arrests in the in the ransomware world. This one it's a good one, because, you know, the Revil group, to your point, have been associated with a number of high profile attacks. You mentioned Kaseya, and so the person that they arrested was directly affiliated with the Kaseya attack. This is the person who perpetrated that attack. So this is like a really good grab for them to get that person. The person that they snatched up is only 22 years old.
Yeah, that was what was interesting. I mean, if you think about the old image of the hacker, right? It was a kid in the basement on the computer doing damage. And here we have somebody who was arrested, charged, charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. And he was 21, and I believe there was an associate, or 22, and there was an associate who was 28, who does remain at large. So like, these are still really young people.
Yeah. We had just not far from where I live, actually, there was that Canadian kid who got arrested for involvement with the nobody will say it, but like basically he was working with the FSB, and this was around the time of like the Clinton email server hacks and all those things, you know, like, or sorry, no, the DNC hack. Sorry, correct myself. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see these younger people perpetrating these crimes. But anyways, to come back to this, so yeah, the Kaseya hack was hugely damaging. So that was the attack against a managed services company that makes a remote management tool that is widely used by managed services operators around the world, right? So, you know, the companies that mid-sized enterprises will engage with to manage their desktops and servers and stuff like that, because they want to augment their IT team, or they are the IT team, right? All the way down to like small business, right? They just can't afford to have a dedicated IT person. And so when they compromised Kaseya, they gained access to all of Kaseya's downstream customers, being those MSPs, and all their downstream customers being hundreds of companies around the world. And I think the headcount was something like 1,400 companies were impacted by that one attack. You know, so the economic damage that, you know, this 22-year-old and his buddy did is huge, and it's global. I think that's where this really got more attention, that created a real will, to your point, a political will to act on this. And then obviously some of the other high profile ones that have just been like hugely disruptive to economies, right? Like the Colonial Pipeline attack.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, even JDS, that was a big one too, right? Like that caused supply chain problems in the food industry too.
So in addition to the arrests, also State Department announced rewards up to $10 million for information leading to the identification or location of the leadership of the REvil ransomware gang. This is CNN's wording, ransomware gang. And the department's also offering $5 million for information leading to arrest or conviction of anybody conspiring or attempting to participate in REvil ransomware attacks. So this is like, these are big dollars. There's a huge number of there's a huge incentive anyway to flip and to try and take some of these guys down. Question here: do you think the Robinhood attack was anything to do with a reaction to their sanctions against the internet meme investors? Oh, this is interesting. Maybe some of those retail investors were hackers. Any thoughts?
Based on Mandiant saying that they've seen the same extortion attempts from the same actor elsewhere, probably not. That's speculation, but if Mandiant are saying they can attribute the same actor to other activities against other organizations, it's probably not the case. Would there be enough upset investors, retail investors that don't like Robinhood, that some of them probably have the capability of causing them pain? Probably, but not in this case. I don't think so. Just go back what you said about the incentives for for identifying participants in the REvil stuff. I think what I want to point out is, since February, the arrests that we made, like 7 ransomware actors. When we say affiliates, I think we just need to be clear on what those are. These are not the people operating these entire criminal enterprises, and people need to think about them as a multi-layered enterprise with different levels of management structure and different ways that people are compensated and rewarded and stuff like that. These are a relatively complex business that has international reach, and so the people that have been rolled up are not the heads of these organizations. We have seen recently one of the groups kind of shut down. So a group called Black Matter, who publicly said because
Dark
of
Matter.
Was it?
Dark Matter.
Okay.
Colonial Pipeline, Dark Matter.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
But it's actually a good point. Like it's hard to keep track of these threat actors because there are so many, and I think they also morph and change, right? So I think what you're just about to say was, look, these groups claim to shut down, and then they maybe pop up with a slightly different name, and they're up to their old tricks. And so, are they the same people? Are they not the same people? Attribution is hard.
Yeah. And what is suspected is that some of these groups actually operate multiple different entities with different names and different looks and different toolkits, right? And there's maybe some shared operational behavior between them, and that's how you can kind of draw the lines between them. But the reality is, like, all of this is anonymous. All of this is conducted over the dark web, by and large, or on anonymized hacking forums and stuff like that, or they've got their own infrastructure that they control and keep private. So to really say that one group has gone and won't simply be back tomorrow as a different flavor, different brand, like that's
okay. So we're both slightly wrong. So I just confirmed. So the original was Dark Side, which was the ransomware as a service that hit Colonial Pipeline. Black Matter emerged from the shadow of Dark Side.
That's
So
fair.
again, like it's tough to keep track of who's who exactly on
Yeah.
on the ransomware. Going back to your point about being complex businesses, I mean, I almost in terms of a mental model, I almost look at this as like think of a general contractor building a house. You have different trades who are responsible for different elements of the construction. A couple days ago, BlackBerry RIM actually just announced that they had found a what they called an initial access broker.
Yep.
So a group specializing only in the initial access of businesses, organizations, that they would then take that initial access and then sell it on to other groups. And so it's almost like a digital trade, right? It's like the carpenter who goes or the framer, I guess, right? Framer frames the house,
Yep.
enables everybody else to go in and do their stuff. Well, here's an initial access broker. They get the initial access and then they pass it on to everybody else in the supply chain, in the cybersecurity supply chain, to be able to do their nefarious deeds.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it's multi-tiered, and there's whole marketplaces designed around these different elements of I don't know how to say it otherwise, but like digital criminality, right? So there are places that you can go and you can buy valid credentials, or just credential dumps, so like ones that have been tested sell for more than, here's a random text file full of what might be crap. You can buy open source intelligence that's being gathered. You can buy databases that have been exfiltrated, right? Like you can buy all different sorts of levels of data about different organizations, and it's all bundled differently. And, there's different tiers, and some of it sells for small dollars and some of it sells for huge dollars. And then you get into the next level, which is, to your point, ransomware as a service, right? And there's multiple operators out there. So you don't have to know how to do this, really, right? You can buy access to a network from a broker, and then you can rent the platform to conduct the ransomware. And as long as you can operate a VPN and not get caught by your local authorities, you too could be a Bitcoin 100,000-aire, very quickly. At least until the feds come and kick your door down.
Or be in a jurisdiction where you don't care about the authorities, right? I think that's the other key point.
That's the problematic part. Right? Like this is a get rich scheme for people who typically are operating in geographies where maybe the options as far as improving your quality of life aren't very good, or it's very inequitable.
Yeah. We're coming close to the half hour. Where can people find out more, either from yourself or from Cycura, your company? How can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can definitely connect with us here on LinkedIn. So reach out, follow us, reach out to me personally. Always happy to respond to people. We do have a blog page on our website that gets updated infrequently, but I'm promised a bunch of updates are coming. And yeah, that's probably the best way to reach out to us. We do have a Twitter that I monitor as well too.
Very good. And I think if folks are interested in tuning into more of these, I think probably the best way is just to follow Iain and I on our personal LinkedIns, and then you get the notifications whenever one of these gets scheduled. So not really sure if there's any other way of advertising this on LinkedIn. Good stuff. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good start, and it's good press for DOJ, Europol. However, what I will say is that these are battles. These are not the war. The people who run these organizations are still going to be incentivized because of the money that they've made. The reality is ransomware attacks more than doubled this year. So, it's, while putting some pain on them is going to hopefully slow things down a little, it's a long way to go. And we need more of what this was, which is international cooperation, to really hurt these people, because otherwise they'll just keep doing it with impunity. So
fair. Have an excellent Tuesday, my friend. And all those on LinkedIn, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.